Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
There was another mass shooting in Mexico yesterday, and what was quite troubling about this mass shooting was the age of the perpetrator. Now, the age of the perpetrator in this mass shooting was only 11 years old. And while many in the media want to try to blame this mass shooting and say its inspiration was based on a violent video game called Natural Selection, when I take a critical examination of this mass shooting, it fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis. And when I look at this boy's background, I see all of the details that fit right in line with the pattern and profile I talked about in The Man Crisis. And with this young boy, I saw many of the traits of a young beta male who was growing up to become a ticking time bomb. But this ticking time bomb had a short fuse, and because he had a short fuse, he wound up exploding in a rage at that school at the young age of 11 years old. Because this boy decided that he was going to go to this school on yesterday, and by telling a classmate that today is the day, and he clearly planned out this mass shooting in his mind, and he had a plan to participate in this mass shooting, and it was clear from his actions this was what he wanted to do, because he left the classroom to go to the bathroom. He disappeared for a long period of time. A teacher went to go look for him, and then all of a sudden he comes out out of the bathroom firing 2 guns. So this young man had been simmering and boiling in anger for some time, and his motivation for being so angry was probably his extremely troubled home life, because this young boy had just lost his mother, who passed away, and was living with his grandparents. And as he was probably trying to grieve his mother's loss, because it was really troubling for him, he didn't have the coping skills to be able to navigate through his emotions and deal with the grief that he was dealing with. Now, I noticed that there was something in the article that was very interesting. They talked about how his mother had passed away, however, and how he lived with his grandparents. However, they did not say anything about this boy's father. So that tells me that the foundation for a lot of his issues not only stemmed from him losing his mother, but it also stemmed from him coming from a single mother household. And with most of these mass shooters, what sets these men off to participate in their spectrum of violent behaviors usually is that foundation of coming from a single mother household. And this boy, at again 11 years old, his world was probably his mother, and he probably felt because he lost his mother, he had lost his world, and because he had no father in his life to teach him male life skills, male survival skills, or help him cope with grieving the loss of his mother, this is probably why this boy wound up simmering and boiling in anger, and probably sat in front of video games simmering and boiling in that anger, and then eventually wound up exploding in that rage. And then he went to go out and make yesterday the day where he would get whatever revenge he wanted on people by coming out of that classroom, firing those 2 guns, killing a teacher, wounding 5 students, and a gym teacher. And this sad incident shows us that the man crisis is an international crisis among men, and this crisis is due, sadly, not because of violent video games, but primarily due to the way we are raising boys here in America and abroad, And the way we are raising boys, again, in these single mother households without any sort of male father figures or male figures, is leading to these boys growing up to become these ticking time bombs. In this case, clearly shows me the process of the boy growing up to become the ticking time bomb. And this boy is, again, he fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talk about in The Man Crisis. And this boy who was in crisis, most people probably didn't see him in crisis because they thought, oh, he's probably just grieving the loss of his mother, not understanding that his mother was probably his whole world. And a lot of boys, when they come from single mother households, the mother is everything to them. And when their mother goes away, they feel like their life has gone away and their whole world has been destroyed. So what they want to do is destroy the world around them. And sadly, most people will deflect and start talking about gun control and video games, but the problem is not gun control or video games. It is the home environment that these boys are being raised in without fathers. And when you have a boy who was raised without a father, he is going to grow up to become a male who becomes one of these beta male ticking time bombs. And what's scary is you don't know when they are going to go off, or what they're going to do when they go off, or what the damage will be when they go off. And again, this situation with just an 11-year-old boy shows us how dangerous this man crisis is, and how dangerous it is when you've got an 11-year-old boy who believes that a mass shooting where he destroys people's lives is a solution to dealing with his problems. And it shows us again, these boys are a ticking time bomb, not only here in America, but all over the world. And it's all due to the way we raise boys in these single mother households. And these households with this soft male approach, these boys don't get the male life skills that they need. And because they do not get those male life skills to teach them how to cope with life, how to navigate through their emotions, and how to deal with things like loss, these boys don't know how to deal with the world out there. And because they're learning about the world from a female perspective, and when they have to deal with the reality of the world, then they want to destroy the world because it's not the world that their mothers told them that it would be. And this is again why these boys are winding up struggling and having a hard time and falling apart. So I look at this situation, and everybody will talk about things like, oh, doing things like talking about gun control, and like in the article they talk about things like safe backpacks, but that stuff is not going to stop anybody when you've got a male with a ticking time bomb mentality. And again, that ticking time bomb mentality comes from the way we raise boys, because when you have women raising boys, they teach them feminine life skills, feminine social skills, feminine coping skills, and they learn how to react based on their emotions rather than respond with logic and critical thinking. Because when a father is in the home, he will teach the boy how to deal with pain through a logical approach, and he will teach him how that while he's feeling, he cannot act on those feelings because he can harm others and harm himself. And he will teach him ways on how to deal with things like grief in a constructive manner. And again, this is all due to the way we are raising boys, but most people don't want to confront that fact because many in corporate America and global corporations don't want to change the way they do business, and many of them don't want to change the way they do business because that means confronting women about the way, one, they raise boys, and two, changing the way we do business in the world, because when we change the way we raise boys, we change the economy, and there are too many in the wealthy who are benefiting from the economy right now, but they're not seeing the long-term picture, because if we continue to have these 2 to 3 generations of ticking time bombs continuing to go off like landmines, we're not going to have any sort of functional economy, because nobody's going to be safe. And when an institution like a school can be disrupted by a mass shooting by an 11-year-old, it shows us how our environment has become more dangerous due to this man crisis. Because when you have young boys who just aren't being raised right, they believe that their only solution to their problems is destroying people's lives, rather than trying to find a solution to things like their personal grief by honoring the people that they love. And again, this man crisis is getting worse over time. And when you have an 11-year-old boy participating in a mass shooting, it shows us how much worse the man crisis is going to get before it gets better. If you want to learn more about the behaviors of this 11-year-old boy and many others who have been raised like him, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats, Smashwords, and the iBookstore. And in that book, you can learn all the ways that raise a boy to become a toxic individual who winds up participating in violent behaviors. And I hope that if you read the book, you can learn how to raise your boy to grow up to become a better man, and so he won't learn how to be one of these mass shooters or participate in other self-destructive behaviors. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.